Can you see everybody, Mom? Hospital bed in St. Vincent's Hospital. A gorgeous wife for 50 years.
Turn it up.
I keep fiddling with the controls. Sorry, whoever's watching this back. Look, there's Umbria. I'm zooming all the way in. We're working on getting sound. I don't know what else to do here, so I'm narrating now, I guess. Yeah. It's the vibe. That is the
Okay, we're going to do the presentation you can watch. Normally me and Sandy were going to do this together, but I think that some of the limitations of Zoom and some of our sound capabilities might restrict us. But Sandy can watch as soon as I figure out how to do that.
I'm gonna get you.
Go right up there.
We'll see what happens. All right, so can you see it, Sandy? All right, so due to technical difficulties, here's what we're going to do. So everybody knows my name, obviously, Bob and Sandy. And today is our 50th anniversary celebration. And as soon as I let it load here and figure out how to advance it, we'll be in Golden, just like downtown. All right, so everybody got this invitation or some facsimile thereof. Thank you for coming. You'll see that's our presentation. Here's when we graduated from high school, which was just 2 short years before we got married. So we got married when we were 20 and a half, which back then, that was the normal age most people got married, right? All of us that are in that age group. And of course, you know, today we look a little bit different. So these are, you know, you get a little gray. You know, you might actually gain just a tiny bit of weight. Sandy didn't, but maybe I did. And of course, we had our 25th. First we had our wedding. Some of you were at my original wedding. And that was right here. You know, Ray Kiley Band was playing right there in the corner. Same bar. You know, we had a grand old time. The color scheme was a little different back then. You can see some of the pictures. We took some of those wedding pictures right out there in the hallway where it had that red velvet carpet background. But that's our 25th. So on our 25th, we did go back to church, redid the service, and you'll see, you know, that was who was here. You know, kind of, many of you are still here. Some, of course, are not. You know, time goes on, and unfortunately, people do pass on. This was our 40th. We also had our 40th here. You might remember some of the wild karaoke party group that was over here. And also that was true on the 25th. So now you'll see some of those people like in the middle picture there with Aubrey and Cavlin singing karaoke, and this is Cavlin right here, and Aubrey is right back over there. So, you know, the difference 10 years can make. So now I better get on my script, I'm going to forget what I'm going to say. So we were going to tell a little bit about, you know, the history of Bob and Sandy. I know I get asked this question a lot. Where did we meet? All right, so we met at the Pizza Hut in De Pere. So anybody knows the Pizza Hut in De Pere. And we did that probably in the summer of 1973, right after we graduated. Sandy's sister was working at the Pizza Hut. I was working at the Chatter House. Sandy was working at Village Gate. And, you know, that was kind of, you know, we'd go there after we got done working or whatever. We somehow got to meet each other. I asked her out to our first beer party. It was at Marty Lewis's house right there. So, of course, Sandy wasn't a beer party kind of girl, but that's the way it worked. Then I went to technical college at North Central Tech. Sandy went to stenographer. Her degree is at Northeast Wisconsin Technical College. And once we got done out of school, we ended up getting married on Labor Day of 1975. And some people say, why did you get married on Labor Day? Well, because it was the only day that the Riverside had available after we decided to get married. And the reason we decided to get married is so quickly, I was going to move to California and work for Jet Propulsion Laboratory after I got out of tech school. However, I had to have a top secret security clearance. That took forever to get freaking through. So while they were monkeying around with that, I ended up taking a job in Chicago at Fermilab. But in the meantime, I'm missing my script here. So here's my family. You know, Mom and Dad and Amy and Steve have passed on. The rest are all here in this room, believe it or not, everybody, my family. Oh, Sheila's actually, you just saw her on the Zoom. She's sitting with Sandy at the hospital. And this is Sandy's family, so her mom and dad have passed on. Everybody's here except for Tom, and Steve had to go home early, so there's a few of them, but the rest of them are all here, spread around through the crowd. We had our wedding party. So, you know, of course we had the original wedding crew. If you look at the right-hand side, that was our, you know, meeting in the morning, you know, get some coffee, and, you know, that's when you decorated car, and you had car drivers and all those things. So, you know, Joe Cullen and Pat Donnelly, two guys standing up, they're both passed on. Of course, my brother Steve, the guy in the lower right with the big sideburn, you know, that's Jeff Elset. He was here last year. That's a picture of me and him last year. And I don't know, Craig's not here. So Craig isn't here. Craig Maskey, but, you know, we'll go through the bridal group, which is there on the bottom. So we have quite a few of our bridal party that's still here. My brother Don, Marty, Vicky, and let's see, who's not here? I should go with the easy. Sue's here. Julie is not here. So there's a few of them that are here and not here. But so that's kind of what it looked like. That was 50 years ago. So you can see kind of the clothes we wore 50 years ago. Then, you know, we decided we better get a job and, you know, rent an apartment. So this is our very first apartment we rented. It's still there. You know, it's at Winter Lane. It's right over in the east side of Green Bay. It's a little fourplex. That was our first place. This is what we looked like when we rented our house there. I worked for K&L Office Equipment and electronics tech, photocopy repair, cash register repair. Sandy worked for Desmond Builders as an administrator. Then, like I said, you know, I had several of my friends from school that had already taken jobs at Fermilab. So Fermilab offered me a job. I said, okay, let's move to Chicago, which Sandy was thrilled with. Was better than California, I guess. So we moved to Chicago. This is the apartment we lived in, Shea Bartley, you know, a typical one-bedroom apartment. You know, that's how you lived back then. You can see what our inside looked like. That's the kind of equipment I worked on. I was a computer tech, electronic tech. This is the place we worked on. You see that building there, and Sandy actually got a job there as the administrative assistant to the CFO. And when I was going to quit and go to digital, they were trying to pay her enough so that I wouldn't leave. But we already decided we were going to have kids in Wisconsin, not in Milwaukee, or Chicago. So then we decided to move to Chicago or to Milwaukee, and I worked for digital equipment. Several of the people who work for me or with me are here tonight. Yeah, over here at the table. And then once we moved to Milwaukee, one of the next big things that happened was our son Brent was born. This guy right here. Believe it or not, when he was born, that's what he looked like. About 3 pounds, about 9 weeks premature. He was born at Waukesha Memorial. His lungs collapsed. They moved him to the intensive care unit, which at the time was called County General Hospital. That's been torn down now. It's the Frederick Memorial Center. But that was the original ICU. These are the people that actually worked on Brent. So this was when the ICUs were, neonatal centers were not, they didn't have them every day. But look what happened. We'll come back to that. Then, Digital had a job opportunity when I was working at in Milwaukee. They said, why don't you, I wanted to move to Green Bay because we were going to have a son, which we did. So we ended up moving to Green Bay, and we bought this house on Good Hope Road in De Pere. Many of you probably remember partying there. And of course, I had a lot of the guys that worked for me in Digital. We were very close. All of our families grew up together. We were very close friends. Several of them that you may not recognize. Not that I'll pick on Tom Rasmussen, but he's right over here by the beer. Can you pick him out in that picture? Yep. He's still got the same glasses.
I still have that sports coat.
So this is the different groups that work for me. That was actually my retirement party from Digital. That was the group that was at my retirement party for Digital. And of course, then we had our daughter, Shauna. Shauna's over there at the head table. And, she was what they call a normal delivery. So, she wasn't premature. We were in Green Bay, born in St. Vincent's. And, she obviously, grew up to be a young lady, a woman. And then our son, Kent, who's right there on the end of the table. So Kent was the next one. And you'll see, I'll talk more about, how I met Jamie and things. And then, of course, our family grew. So, you start with a family of, a bunch of little kids. They become teenagers, they become young adults, and now they become, parents, and now we're grandparents. That's the way it works. Age is a wonderful thing. So we outgrew our house in De Pere. We moved to this house about 40-some years ago, 46 years ago, actually. And it's the same house we still live in. So many of you have been to our house, I'm sure. If you haven't, it's open pretty much any time, particularly Sunday afternoons. We always have family get-togethers. Just come on over. We play all kinds of card games, and we play board games. So just invite yourself. We're usually there. If it looks like the garage door is not open, then we're not there. And of course, at that time, I was working for a company. Digital offered me. They were changing over quite a bit, and things weren't going good. So one of my customers, in fact, the management, offered me a job as a sales manager. So I took that job. And I drove to Milwaukee back and forth for many, many years. And you'll see several of the people. Then we were in 1999, we got acquired by IFS. So there's a few EMS/IFSers here with us tonight. So that's just a few of the different photos of that. And of course, the advantage of that is IFS is a Scandinavian Swedish company, so we got to travel to Europe a lot. So we usually got 1, maybe 2 trips a year to Europe with Sandi and me. We were able to bring our spouses, which was one of the good things, and we became very close friends and travel companions with many of the people that we were with. Of course, in our house in De Pere, we hosted a lot of parties. We still do. Those of you have been at our Christmas parties and, pig roast and some of the other things that we have going on. So that's what it looked like a while ago. And then the next thing that happened was Shauna and her boyfriend Nate had our grandson Canaan, who was right there at the back. And you can see, they start out as lovable little kids, and they grow into college kids, and but obviously Canaan's he's still going to UWGD, and hopefully this is the senior year. So that's Canaan. And then of course the next thing that happened is Brent ended up, he originally went to be a youth minister. So he was in Lake Wisconsin, he was in Mankato, a few different places. Then he decided to get out of that and go into electronic technician, camera, security systems, moved to Miami, Then from Miami, when Miami, the economy went to heck, he moved to Fargo, North Dakota. And it was a great thing because that's where he met Time, you know. And you can see he met Time down there. So that was a great thing. And then of course, what happens, you know, they had kids. So Tavlin is right here. And you know, Tavlin was our first granddaughter after Kent was Kane was our first grandson. And then Umbria, which is right in the back there. So we had Umbria as our next granddaughter. And we love to travel with our grandkids. So, you know, I have a saying, you're gonna inherit my money, but I'm going with you. And that means literally, I'm going with you. And, you know, this is just a picture of kind of what our family looked like a few years ago. I mean, this was taken at the baptism, I think, of Umbria, so it would have been 12 years ago. And, you know, they just grow up. These are our grandkids. And then the next thing that happened, Kent meets Jamie. And, you know, there is, you know, the next daughter-in-law. So they met Jamie. And they had a little girl, unfortunately stillborn, Isla. And then they had Ainsley. Saddest day of festive. Me and Sandi were at all 6 of our grandkids' births. Of course, many of you will recognize this group of clowns, you know, so this is the Corrigan family. So on the left, we were a little younger, you know, that would give us a little idea of, you know, that was when bangs were in style. And we had this formal picture taken. I don't even remember why we had it.
That was the only way Mom knew how to cut hair.
Yeah, we all had our hair cut by our mother, right? So this one we took a picture and we went into Art Gertz's. Many you know Art and Irma's. And they said, what the hell are you guys all dressed up for? I forget if it was Steve or Don said, oh, didn't you know it was Dad's funeral today? And they thought it was, and it wasn't. This was just a family picture we took at the time. Yeah. It was a cruel joke. You know how Don can be. And then this was when the Packers went to the first Super Bowl. Not the very first Super Bowl, the first Super Bowl in modern era. And this guy gives you a little crowd of, these are the brothers, sisters, and kids. Many of them are here. And then of course, Sandi comes from a fairly large family also. So these are 2 pictures where all of the family was there, which is very rare because they moved around the country and they never could make certain events. But the one on the left is Bill's wedding. The one on the right was taken at the cabin up in Minnesota. It just so happened it was a snowy day. Didn't that turn out really nice? And of course, we've always loved, you know, working with families. So I have a lot of my cousins here. And, you know, this happens to be the Corrigan, this is the Corrigan cousins. So we got quite a few Corrigan cousins. And you can see, you know, this goes back to, you know, that's at that's at Legion Park on the left-hand side. That's, I think, on Waymore Park on the bottom. And then these were at the farm where we had the actual, what do you call those things, bleachers to sit in. So we've always had good turnouts from the Corrigan clan. And then of course the Matsky clan, I had to make it 2 different slides. So, you know, these are the aunts and uncles. Pretty much all of them have passed on. You know, all of the Matsky clan has passed on. All of the Corrigan aunts and uncles of my aunts and uncles have passed on, with the rare exception of actually my my Aunt Ellen, who dies, husband Victorio got remarried, and she is still alive at 93. So there is one that's kind of in the clan. But this just gives you an idea, and you know, like I said, many of you of the Matsky side of my family know all those. And then of course, you know, as cousins, we've always been pretty close as cousins. You know, we are a party kind of group of people, and of course, living on the farm, all the city kids came up to the farm. The Corrigans, a lot of the other ones had farms, so there wasn't a need to come to the farm to, you know, help bale hay and milk cows and see what animals are like. But on the Matsky side, that wasn't quite so true. So we did spend quite a bit of time with the Matsky family. And then Sandi's family also is very large. both her mom and dad's family. Her dad's family, the walls only had 3. They've all passed on. But on her mom's side, both her grandma and grandpa, they still have reunions every year. We were just there. And these are the aunts and uncles, and they range of age from like 82 to 97. And 10 of them are still alive. So hopefully, some of us get those genes. Of course, that's not my genetic path, but. And then this is on the Erickson side. The last one was on the Olson side, which was her grandma, and then this is on the Erickson side, which is her grandpa. So this just gives you an idea. These are all, everybody in that picture on the right. Oh no, Chuck is, there's 2 of them that are gone in that picture. As a general rule, like I said, we take these, we were just there, just took random pictures, like second week of August. And of course, like I said, we love to travel. So me and Sandy have had lots of chances to go lots of places. We were just in Australia. These are since we retired, kind of, now we got nothing to do but, travel with the kids, grandkids, or without. And we do travel quite a bit, and I'll say a little bit with the IFS crew. But that's in, obviously that was in Australia. That's the only place you're gonna find wallets like that. Paris, and that's Antigua. That's Morocco. That's, the Pantheon is in Athens. And this is in New Zealand at Hobbitland. And then I retired 3 years ago, just a little over a year ago, 3 years ago. This was my retirement party. Many of the group right there are from the retirement party. And we travel, well, a fair amount, I'll say. We'd like to travel more, but it's hard to get 8 people's schedule to work out perfectly. This was Iceland last year. So we went with the 2 couples that are there, and one other couple. Rick would have been here with Ellen, except her mother's in hospice, and they had to take care of her. So that's why they're not here, but that was in Iceland. And you can see we've traveled, quite a few places. You always take pictures when you're eating. I don't know why that is. So, you get group pictures when you're eating. So that's just the way it works, and that's what we've had. And then, of course, family. Like I said, we do travel with family. So we do try to go to Vegas, every year. And that's what that one on the left is, going to Vegas. And then we did take the whole family to Ireland in 2022. Right before that, we went to, the right, upper right is, we went to Norway. This is on a glacier. It was raining and it poured off the glacier. We weren't able to actually go. We had to evacuate off the glacier because the river was running down so deep on us. And then that's where Sandy's great-grandmother was, from Balustrade. That's in Alaska. That's at Disney. So different places. This is the whole group when we were in Ireland. This is who we went to northern Canada last year, to Jasper, when they had the big fires the week after we left. And then this was just in Italy, like 3 weeks ago. So, not that we like to go on. Oh, was it 3 weeks ago? It was in the middle of July. It's 6 weeks ago. All right, so, okay, I exaggerated. It's 6 weeks ago. And after we retired, I do volunteer I'm on the board for the Brown County Historical Society. I'm on the board for the Wings Over Wisconsin group. I kind of think of that as an excuse to let me get dressed up. So if any of you, want to come and see a graveside, historic reenactment of people from Green Bay, I do those. You can see some of the ones that I've done. Sandy likes to do, she's a docent and does guides at the Hazelwood House and helps out quite a bit. And of course, then I also, we like to dress up just to be dressing up. So different things that we do to do what we're doing. And this is the announcement that in 2035, the 60th will be right here. And Sandy should still be there. Let's see if I can do this. Okay, we're back. Can you still hear us, Sandy? Maybe not. Hopefully. Here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to. She can hear us when you talk in the computer.
Okay, we're trying again.
Hey, Mom, they can probably hear you.
Okay. I am in the best place I can be for what's going on. So, have an enjoyable evening. And I will be in touch with each and every one of you after. Love you all.
All right, well, there are cheesecakes personally selected by Sandy right over here on this table. So you want to get yourself a cheesecake. There's a couple of gluten-free if you're gluten-free. But come on over, grab yourself a cheesecake. The bartender should be back here to run our bar. And we'll start some music and time for the party to begin.